Let me paint you a picture of the most notorious watering hole in three-star systems. The cosmic cantina sits on Zephyr Station like a carbuncle on the armpit of civilization, and that's being generous, to both carbuncles and armpits. It's the kind of establishment where the health inspector would file a report in triplicate just to warn other health inspectors not to go there. The clientele? Well, imagine every species evolution forgot to finish, then gave them weapons and drinking problems. Tonight's crowd includes a hegemony officer whose entire personality consists of looking down on everyone else, which is quite an achievement considering he's only 4 feet tall. There's also a cluster of Zentorian traders who communicate exclusively through interpretive flatulence, and a group of silicon-based lifeforms who've been nursing the same drinks for 6 hours because they process alcohol about as fast as sedimentary rock forms. Behind the bar stands Blebo, a nervous wreck of a creature whose forearms are never idle because his species evolved anxiety into an art form. He's got more eyes than a security camera and twice the paranoia, constantly scanning the room for trouble, while polishing glasses with the dedication of someone who knows that staying busy keeps the existential dread at bay. Now, according to the Galactic Species Hierarchy Council, which is definitely not a racist organization despite all evidence to the contrary, sentient beings are ranked by their threat level, intelligence, and general usefulness to civilized society. At the top, you've got your apex predators, like the Krillians, who look like someone crossed a tiger with a tank and gave it a philosophy degree in violence. Next come your warrior species, your intellectual types, your traders, and so on down the line. And at the very bottom, ranked just above houseplants and significantly below most forms of mold, you'll find humanity. Earth's representatives are considered so harmless that most species forget we exist until we show up asking if anyone needs help fixing their air conditioning. Which brings us to Jake Murphy, who just finished a 12-hour shift making sure Zephyr Station doesn't decompress, depressurize, or accidentally fold itself into a pocket dimension. Jake's the kind of guy who says good morning to vending machines and thanks elevator doors when they open for him. He's also blissfully unaware that the universe considers his entire species to be evolutionary participation trophies. Jake pushes through the cantina's doors with all the self-preservation instincts of a tourist asking for directions in a war zone. His coveralls are stained with every conceivable fluid that keeps a space station running, his tool belt clanks with each step, and his smile could power a small solar system. He's exactly the kind of customer Blebo wishes would drink somewhere else, preferably in another galaxy. "Evening, Blebo," Jake calls out, apparently the only patron who's ever bothered learning the bartender's name. "How's business?" Blebo's primary eyes swivel toward Jake while his secondary eyes continue monitoring the room for signs of impending violence, which in the cosmic cantina is less a possibility and more a scheduling conflict. "Oh, same as always, trying not to die, mostly." "That's the spirit," Jake says, completely missing the literal accuracy of that statement. "Can I get a stellar light? And please tell me you still have those little pretzel things that taste like regret and sodium." What Jake doesn't notice, because he possesses the situational awareness of a concussed goldfish, is that the cantina has gone quieter than a library during finals week. Conversations have stopped mid-sentence, drinks hover halfway to lips, and even the Zentorians have ceased their aromatic discourse. The reason for this sudden silence is standing in the doorway like Death's vacation photo. Vorthak the Destroyer measures 8 feet of pure nightmare fuel, covered in natural armor plating that could deflect small asteroids. His claws could open cans, cars, or chest cavities with equal ease, and his yellow eyes scan the room with the lazy confidence of something that has never, not once, been anything other than the most dangerous thing in any given room. Vortak is what happens when evolution decides to skip the trial and error phase and jump straight to the "let's make something that can kill everything else" portion of the program. He's a Krillian bounty hunter with 47 confirmed kills, which doesn't include the ones he killed for fun. And he's got a reputation that spans 17 systems and several dimensions, where reputation is considered a form of currency. Commander Zilch, the hegemony officer who's been holding court at his corner table, suddenly finds his drink extremely fascinating. The silicon-based life forms begin a process that might be either leaving or calcifying. It's hard to tell. Even the vending machines seem to dim their displays out of respect. And Jake Murphy, oblivious to the fact that the galactic equivalent of a natural disaster just walked in, turns around with his beer and immediately bumps into Vortek's armored chest. "Oops, sorry about that," Jake says, stepping back and raising his beer in a gesture that's either a toast or an apology. "Didn't see you there, big guy. You're new, right? I'm Jake, welcome to the neighborhood." The silence that follows could be bottled and sold as a cure for insomnia. Somewhere in the cantina, a drink glass hits the floor with a sound like a gunshot. Blebo's forearms freeze in mid-motion, creating a tableau that art critics would call still life with impending violence. As in the entire recorded history of the galaxy, no one has ever casually bumped into Vorthak the Destroyer and lived to need therapy about it. Now, if you've never seen a Krillian's face when they're processing an emotion beyond murder or more murder, let me describe it for you. Vorthak's expression goes through more changes than a mood ring in a tornado. First, there's confusion, because his prey detection instincts are screaming that something just touched him. But his threat assessment systems are coming back, with readings equivalent to slightly damp tissue paper. Then comes the insult calculation. In Krillian society, physical contact without permission is either a mating ritual, which Jake clearly isn't qualified for, or a challenge to mortal combat, which Jake is even less qualified for. The fact that this walking meatbag just casually shoulder-checked him and then offered a beverage greeting has short-circuited about 3 million years of evolutionary programming. "You," Vorthak rumbles in a voice that sounds like gravel having an existential crisis, "dare to touch me?" Jake blinks, taking a sip of his beer. "Touch you? Oh, the bump thing? Yeah, sorry about that. These coveralls make me about as graceful as a 3-legged rhino on roller skates. No offense intended, big guy." Blebo's forearms begin what can only be described as a panic dance, rapidly cleaning the same glass over and over while his eyes dart between the two figures like he's watching the universe's most terrifying tennis match. "Jake," he whispers with the urgency of someone trying to prevent a galactic incident, "maybe you should—" "Oh, I know," Jake interrupts, snapping his fingers. "You want to arm wrestle, don't you? I can tell by the way you're flexing. Man, everyone wants to arm wrestle the new guy. I mean, I'm not great at it, but I'm always up for some friendly competition." The sound that emerges from Vorthak's throat is somewhere between a growl and the noise a starship makes when its engines are failing. Around the cantina, various species begin making preparations that range from ducking behind furniture, to updating their wills, to questioning their life choices that led them to drink in a place where this sort of thing happens. Commander Zilch, sensing an opportunity to demonstrate his superiority, slides over with the swagger of someone who's never had to back up his attitude with actual physical capability. "Human," he announces in the tone of someone explaining quantum physics to a goldfish, "you have just challenged Vorthak the Destroyer to single combat. In approximately 30 seconds, you're going to become a very messy lesson in why your species should have stayed in whatever primitive cave system you crawled out of." Jake looks around the increasingly tense cantina, finally starting to pick up on the atmosphere. "Oh, is this like a formal thing? Should I fill out paperwork? I've got forms back at maintenance if we need to make this official." 47, Blebo whispers, his voice cracking like puberty hitting a choir boy. 47 confirmed kills, Jake. Natural weapons, enhanced reflexes, armor plating that can deflect plasma blasts, tactical training from the Krillinian War Academy, a nervous system that processes pain as motivation, and a digestive system that can break down the calcium in bones for extra nutrition. Jake nods thoughtfully, processing this information with all the gravity of someone being told about weekend weather. "Wow, that's quite a resume. Very impressive. Hey, do you guys have any of those little cheese cubes? All this talk about bones is making me hungry." Vorthak's patience, which was already running on fumes and bad intentions, finally hits empty. He draws himself up to his full 8-foot height, spreads his arms to display the full span of his natural weaponry, and issues what is unmistakably a formal challenge in the ancient Krillian tongue. It's a beautiful language, really, if you appreciate the poetry of describing exactly how someone's internal organs are going to be rearranged. The translation, for those keeping score at home, roughly amounts to, "Insignificant flesh creature, you have insulted my honor and my person. I challenge you to ritual combat, where I will demonstrate the vast superiority of my species by converting your molecular structure into a cautionary tale." Jake listens politely, nodding along like he's receiving directions to the nearest gas station. When Vorthak finishes his proclamation of doom, Jake raises his beer in what he apparently thinks is a toast. "Right on, buddy. So, arm wrestling it is, best 2 out of 3, and hey, winner buys the next round. I'm feeling lucky tonight." The betting begins immediately. Commander Zilch starts taking odds, because even impending interspecies homicide is an opportunity for profit if you have the right attitude. The silicon-based lifeforms pool their resources and bet against the human, which is less gambling and more like investing in the laws of physics. Even the Zentorians pause their olfactory conversation to place wagers through a complex series of aromatic agreements. The odds? Let's just say that if you bet on Jake and somehow won, you could buy your own space station with the payout. Blabo continues his frantic glass polishing, muttering prayers in 17 different languages, including 3 he just made up on the spot. "This is it," he whispers to himself. "This is how my establishment becomes known as the place where humanity's last representative got turned into abstract art." And Jake Murphy, blissfully unaware that he's about 10 seconds away from becoming a very brief entry in several species textbooks, finishes his beer and starts rolling up his sleeves. Now, if you've ever watched a nature documentary about apex predators, you'll know they have a very specific routine. They size up their prey, calculate the most efficient kill method, and then execute it with the precision of a Swiss timepiece having a very bad day. Vorthak has performed this dance 47 times, and it usually lasts about as long as a sneeze. What Vorthak has never encountered is prey that doesn't understand its prey. Jake clears his space at the nearest table, pushing aside drinks and what might be either snacks or small pets. It's hard to tell in this lighting. He sits down, plants his elbow on the scarred surface, and grins up at 8 feet of evolutionary murder machine. "All right, big guy, let's see what you've got. Fair warning, though, I've been working with hydraulic systems all week, so my grip strength is probably a little off." Vorthak stares down at the human with the expression of someone who's just been asked to explain quantum mechanics using only interpretive dance. His entire worldview, carefully constructed around the simple premise that smaller things die when larger things want them to, is experiencing what technical experts call a complete system failure. The cantina has arranged itself into a rough circle, with everyone maintaining what they hope is a safe distance from the impending splatter zone. Blebo has positioned himself behind the bar's blast shield, which he installed after the incident with the plasma grenades last month. Commander Zilch has claimed the best viewing spot, practically vibrating with anticipation at watching a lesser species get educated about the natural order. "Human," Vorthak growls, his voice carrying the patience of someone explaining fire safety to a pyromaniac. "This is not arm wrestling. This is ritual combat to the death. I am going to kill you now." Jake nods understandingly. "Oh, I get it. You're one of those serious competitive types. My buddy Rick was the same way about bowling. Look, I respect that, but it's just arm wrestling, man. Try to have some fun with it." What happens next violates several laws of physics and at least 3 laws of common sense. Vorthak, deciding that direct communication has failed, launches himself at Jake with the speed and violence of a natural disaster applying for a job in demolitions. His claws extend to their full 8-inch length. His armor plates flare outward in an intimidation display that has caused smaller species to literally die of fright, and he releases a battle cry that registers on seismic equipment in 3 adjacent systems. Jake, seeing a large shape moving toward him rapidly, does what any reasonable maintenance worker would do when something appears to be falling. He ducks. Vorthak sails over Jake's head with the grace of a freight train attempting ballet, crashes into the table behind him, and lands in a pile that includes 2 Zentaurian traitors, a bowl of something that might be soup, and what's left of Commander Zilch's dignity. "Whoa there, buddy," Jake says, standing up and brushing off his coveralls. "You all right? These floors can be pretty slippery. I keep telling station management they need better traction mats, but do they listen to the maintenance guy? Course not." The silence that follows is broken only by the sound of Vorthak extracting himself from the wreckage and what might be either Zentaurian cursing or a very aggressive form of beatboxing. Here's what the assembled audience doesn't understand about humans, and what Jake doesn't understand about himself. We're the product of a planet that spent millions of years trying to kill us in increasingly creative ways. We developed reflexes not for hunting or fighting, but for avoiding death by falling rocks, angry weather, and gravity's personal vendetta against our species. When Jake ducked, he wasn't employing some advanced combat technique. He was just doing what his ancestors did when they saw a saber-toothed tiger leaping at them, which was essentially not be where the saber-toothed tiger expected them to be. Vorthak rises from the debris with the dignity of someone who's just realized that their reputation might need some editing. He turns to face Jake, and for the first time in his career as a professional killer, he's experiencing something completely foreign. Confusion mixed with a tiny, almost imperceptible amount of doubt. "You moved," Vorthak states, as if this is somehow against the rules of reality. "Well, yeah," Jake replies, looking genuinely concerned. "You were coming right at me. I thought maybe you tripped or something. Here, let me help you with that." Jake reaches out to brush some debris off Vorthak's armor, and the Krillian warrior reflexively swipes at him with claws that could carve their names in titanium. Jake, thinking Vorthak is trying to shake hands, steps forward and to the side while reaching out with his other hand. The result is that Vorthok's killing blow whistles through empty air while Jake accidentally grabs the warrior's wrist, in what could be interpreted as either a greeting or a combat hold, depending on your perspective. "Nice grip," Jake says approvingly. "You work out?" Commander Zilch, watching from his supposedly safe distance, begins to reassess his understanding of human combat capabilities. The way Jake moved wasn't random. It was tactically sound. The way he redirected Vorthok's attack showed sophisticated understanding of momentum and leverage. The casual conversation during combat indicated either supreme confidence or psychological warfare of the highest order. What Zilch doesn't realize is that Jake has no idea he's in combat. Vorthok wrenches his arm free and backs away, studying his opponent with new respect. In 47 previous encounters, his prey had either run screaming, begged for mercy, or attacked with the desperate fury of the doomed. This human was doing none of those things. This human was treating mortal combat like a friendly handshake that had gotten slightly out of hand. And that, from a predator's perspective, is absolutely terrifying. "You mock me," Vorthok snarls, circling Jake like a shark with anger management issues. Jake turns to follow his movement, hands raised in what he thinks is a calming gesture but what everyone else interprets as a combat stance. "Mock you? No way, man. I think you're great. Really impressive entrance earlier. Very dramatic. You should consider theater." That's when Vorthok makes the kind of decision that seems perfectly logical at the time and historically embarrassing in retrospect. He calls for backup. 3 more Kryllian warriors materialize from the cantina's shadowy corners, because apparently the Cosmic Cantina's customer base includes more apex predators than a National Geographic fever dream. They move with the coordinated precision of a military unit, which makes sense because they literally are a military unit. Specifically, they're Vorthok's hunting pack, and they've been lurking in the background like deadly furniture. Their names are Grax, Thull, and Mordic, though to be honest, Kryllian names all sound like someone clearing their throat aggressively, so we'll just call them Backup 1, Backup 2, and Backup 3 for clarity. Jake looks around at the 4 8-foot death machines now surrounding him, and his face lights up like Christmas morning. "Oh wow, this is turning into a real team-building exercise. I love it when workplaces do group activities. Are we doing trust falls next?" Blebo, watching from behind his blast shield, begins updating his will using a napkin and what might be either ink or his own blood. It's hard to tell under the cantina's mood lighting. The other patrons have pressed themselves against the walls like they're trying to phase through solid matter through sheer desperation. Commander Zilch, however, is taking notes. Literally. He's pulled out a data pad and is documenting what he's convinced is the most sophisticated psychological warfare he's ever witnessed. The human's ability to project casual confidence while surrounded by superior firepower is either genius-level strategy or the most elaborate suicide note in galactic history. "Observe," Vorthok growls to his packmates, "how this human employs mind games. He pretends to be harmless while clearly possessing advanced combat training." "Advanced combat training?" Jake perks up with interest. "Oh, you must mean the safety seminars. Yeah, we get those monthly. Very informative. Did you know that most workplace injuries happen because people don't pay attention to their environment?" As if summoned by the mention of environmental awareness, Jake's maintenance worker instincts suddenly kick into overdrive. His eyes, trained by years of keeping a space station from killing its inhabitants, begin cataloging problems that everyone else is too focused on impending violence to notice. There's a gas leak near table 7. The overhead lighting fixture above the bar is hanging by one bolt and what appears to be wishful thinking. The floor plating near the entrance is buckled and creating a tripping hazard, and the ventilation system is making that particular whistling sound that means someone's going to be breathing recycled carbon monoxide unless someone fixes it in the next 10 minutes. "Guys, I hate to interrupt whatever this is," Jake says, pulling a scanner from his tool belt, "but we've got some serious safety violations in here. Blebo, when's the last time you had the atmospheric processors serviced?" Vorthok exchanges glances with his pack. This is not how ritual combat typically proceeds. Usually there's more screaming, and considerably more blood by this point. The humans' behavior patterns are so far outside their tactical training that they're essentially improvising. "Kill him," Vorthok orders, which in Kryllian translates to something like, "Please proceed to convert the target into past tense." The pack attacks with the coordination of a well-oiled killing machine. They move in a pattern designed to eliminate any possible escape route, their claws extended, their battle cries harmonizing into a symphony of doom. Jake, meanwhile, has located the source of the gas leak and is already moving toward it with the purposeful stride of someone who's seen what happens when people ignore methane buildup in enclosed spaces. Hold that thought, guys. This is actually pretty urgent. What follows can only be described as the most accidentally choreographed fight scene in galactic history. Backup 1 lunges at Jake's current position, but Jake has already moved toward the gas leak, so the warrior crashes into table 7, which collapses and triggers the emergency release valve that Jake was trying to reach anyway. This vents the built-up gas harmlessly into the recycling system, while simultaneously trapping Backup 1 under a pile of furniture and confused Zentorians. "Thanks for the assist," Jake calls out cheerfully, pulling out his sonic wrench to tighten the valve. "Teamwork makes the dream work." Backup 2, adapting to the human's mobility, attempts a ceiling attack by leaping from beam to beam like a 8-foot death spider. Unfortunately, those beams include the one supporting the loose lighting fixture that Jake spotted earlier. The warrior's landing causes the fixture to break free and crash down, creating a shower of sparks and twisted metal that illuminates the cantina like the galaxy's most dangerous disco ball. Jake, hearing the electrical crackling, immediately shuts off the local power grid from a maintenance panel he apparently memorized the location of. The cantina plunges into emergency lighting, but more importantly, it prevents an electrical fire that would have killed everyone in the room within minutes. "Good catch on the electrical hazard," Jake says to Backup 2, who's currently unconscious under several hundred pounds of emergency lighting. "Safety first, am I right?" Backup 3, now thoroughly convinced that the human is employing some form of tactical sorcery, attempts a direct frontal assault. He charges straight at Jake with his claws extended and his armor plates flared in full intimidation display. Jake, still focused on the structural damage caused by the lighting fixture, notices that the impact has created a stress fracture in the ceiling support. He pulls out his emergency sealant and steps directly into Backup 3's path, not to intercept the attack, but to reach the crack before it spreads. Backup 3 hits Jake's sealant canister at full speed. The pressurized contents explode outward in a cloud of rapidly hardening foam that instantly cocoons the warrior in what looks like the universe's most aggressive bubble wrap. "Oh man, sorry about that," Jake says, genuinely apologetic as he watches Backup 3 struggle against his foam prison. "That stuff sets fast. Don't worry, it's biodegradable. You'll be out of there in about 6 hours, 8 tops." The cantina has gone completely silent except for the sound of Backup 3's muffled protests and the gentle hum of the newly repaired ventilation system. Jake surveys his handiwork with the satisfaction of someone who's just completed a particularly challenging maintenance call. The overhead lights flicker back on, revealing a scene that could be titled, "Still Life with Unconscious Warriors and Confused Bystanders." The gas leak is fixed, the electrical hazard is contained, the structural damage is sealed, and 3 of the galaxy's most feared predators are incapacitated by what appears to be routine maintenance procedures. Vorthak stands alone in the middle of the cantina, staring at Jake with the expression of someone who's just watched their entire worldview get folded into origami by a particularly enthusiastic child. "How?" Vorthak asks, his voice carrying the bewilderment of someone who's just lost a chess game to a piece of toast. "Did you do that?" Jake looks around at the chaos, genuinely puzzled. "Do what? I just fixed a few safety hazards. This place was a death trap waiting to happen. Honestly, I'm surprised the insurance company hasn't shut you down." That's when the cavalry arrives. Assuming cavalry means Commander Zilch, followed by 6 members of station security who look like they'd rather be literally anywhere else in the universe. They burst through the cantina's entrance with their weapons drawn and their courage set to cautiously optimistic. "Stand down, human," Zilch barks, his voice carrying all the authority of someone who's never actually had to back up his orders with physical force. "You're under arrest for assault, destruction of property, and—" He pauses, looking around at the scene of carnage that somehow includes better lighting and improved air circulation. "And whatever this is." Jake, who's currently checking the structural integrity of the foam cocoon around Backup 3, looks up with the expression of someone who's just been accused of fixing things too efficiently. "Arrest? What for? I mean, sure, I should have filed a work order first, but this was emergency maintenance. Someone could have gotten seriously hurt." Commander Zilch follows Jake's pointing finger to the sealed ceiling crack, the properly vented gas system, and the newly secured electrical conduits. His tactical analysis software, which cost more than most planets' annual budgets, is having what can only be described as a complete philosophical crisis. According to every military manual ever written, the human should be dead. The cantina should be painted in various shades of Jake, and Vorthak should be updating his kill count. Instead, the human appears to have neutralized 4 apex predators, while simultaneously improving the structural integrity of the entire establishment. Explain, Zilch demands, his voice tight with the strain of someone trying to maintain authority while his worldview crumbles around him. How you defeated 4 Krillian warriors using, he gestures vaguely at Jake's tool belt, maintenance equipment. Jake blinks, looking genuinely confused. Defeated? Nobody got defeated? Well, except maybe common sense, because seriously, who builds a cantina with methane vents right next to the dining area? That's just asking for trouble. The warriors, Zilchich pointing, at the various forms of unconscious or incapacity Krillians scattered around the cantina like the world's most dangerous garage sale. You eliminated them. Eliminated? Jake's voice rises with the horror of someone who's just been accused of murder. They're not eliminated, they're just temporarily inconvenienced. Look, backup 1 there just needs help getting out from under the table. Backup 2 will have a headache when he wakes up, but the medical scanner shows no serious injuries. And backup 3 will be out of that foam in a few hours, good as new. Jake pulls out a medical scanner from his seemingly bottomless tool belt and begins taking readings on the unconscious warriors with the dedicated concern of someone checking on sleeping puppies. See? All vital signs normal. Well, normal for Krillians. I looked up their species profile after I met Vorthak here. Fascinating biology, really. Did you know their cardiovascular system can operate at 30% efficiency for up to 6 hours? That's incredible evolutionary adaptation. Vorthak, still processing his complete tactical failure, stares at the human with something approaching respect. You studied my species? Of course, Jake says, as if this is the most obvious thing in the universe. I always research the folks I meet at work. It's just good customer service. Plus, your respiratory system is really interesting from an engineering perspective. Very efficient airflow dynamics. Commander Zilch's security team exchanged glances that roughly translate to, are we witnessing genius-level psychological warfare, or is this human genuinely insane? The betting is currently running about 50-50. Human, Zilch says slowly, as if explaining mathematics to a particularly dense rock. You have just demonstrated advanced combat capabilities by using environmental factors to neutralize superior opponents. This is clearly evidence of sophisticated military training. Jake laughs, a sound that somehow manages to be both cheerful and slightly concerning in the current context. Military training? Commander, I fix air conditioners and unclog waste recyclers for a living. The only combat training I've had was a workplace safety seminar on hostile work environments, and that was mostly about dealing with angry customers and malfunctioning equipment. Hostile work environments, Zilch repeats, as if he's discovered the key to some ancient mystery. Of course, psychological conditioning. Preparation for asymmetric warfare scenarios. Well, I guess you could call it that, Jake agrees, completely missing the military implications. You'd be amazed how hostile a waste recycling system can get when it's been neglected for 6 months. And don't get me started on what happens when the atmospheric processors decide to have a personality conflict with the gravity generators. While Jake continues his explanation of maintenance protocols, something remarkable happens. Word of the incident begins spreading through the station's communication networks faster than gossip in a small town. The story, already growing in the telling, describes how a human maintenance worker casually defeated 4 Krillian warriors using nothing but routine problem-solving skills. Within minutes, Jake Murphy's accidental legend begins taking on a life of its own. Security footage of the incident, viewed without context, shows what appears to be a master tactician using environmental manipulation and psychological warfare to systematically neutralize superior opponents, while maintaining casual conversation throughout. The Galactic Species Hierarchy Council's threat assessment algorithms begin recalculating humanity's ranking in real time. If humans can turn routine maintenance into combat effectiveness, what other hidden capabilities do they possess? Are their repair protocols actually military tactics? Is their apparent helpfulness a form of strategic positioning? Meanwhile, Jake has finished his medical assessments and is now checking the cantina's structural improvements with the pride of someone who's just solved a particularly challenging technical problem. You know, Blebo, with these modifications, you've actually got a much safer establishment here. Better ventilation, more stable lighting, improved emergency systems. You might want to consider applying for a safety certification upgrade. Blebo, who's been watching the entire proceedings from behind his blast shield like he's witnessing the birth of a new form of physics, just nods mutely. His forearms are still clutched around the same glass he's been polishing since the incident began. Commander Zilch makes a decision that will either secure his promotion or end his career. Human, he announces formally, by order of the Galactic Security Council, you are hereby designated a person of strategic interest. Your maintenance protocols will be studied and potentially classified as military assets. Jake looks up from his structural assessment with the expression of someone who's just been told his hobby of collecting bottle caps is now considered high art. Strategic interest, that's nice of you to say, Commander, but honestly, I just don't like seeing things broken when they could be fixed. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how Jake Murphy accidentally became the galaxy's first human military consultant, while genuinely believing he just had a really good day at work. 30 minutes later, Jake finally gets his beer and nachos. The nachos are slightly stale and taste exactly like regret and sodium, just the way he likes them. He's sitting at the bar, occasionally glancing over at Backup 3, who's still working his way out of the biodegradable foam cocoon with the determination of someone who's really committed to the bit. So, Bleepo asks, his voice still carrying the shell-shocked quality of someone who's survived their own funeral, is it true what they're saying about humans? Jake looks up from his nachos, a piece of cheese stretching between his mouth and the chip in a way that would be undignified if dignity were something he'd ever worried about. What are they saying about humans? That you're all secretly trained warriors, that your maintenance protocols are actually military tactics, that your entire species has been playing the galaxy's longest con by pretending to be harmless while developing unstoppable combat techniques. Jake considers this while chewing thoughtfully. Well, I mean, we do have that saying about holding someone's beer before doing something stupid, but I wouldn't call it a military tactic, more like a warning system. The phrase, "hold my beer," spreads through the cantina like wildfire. Within hours, it will be translated into 47 languages and filed as a formal challenge declaration by the Galactic Diplomatic Corps. Military academies will debate its tactical implications for decades. Commander Zilch, who's been filing reports with the urgency of someone who's just discovered fire, looks up from his datapad. Warning system? Yeah, when someone says, "hold my beer," you know they're about to do something that's either really brilliant or really stupid, and the odds are heavily in favor of stupid. It's like a public service announcement for bystanders. Vorthak, who's been sitting in contemplative silence while his pack recovers from their encounter with advanced human maintenance techniques, finally speaks. Your species uses alcohol consumption as a tactical assessment tool? I guess you could put it that way, Jake agrees. Though mostly we use it to make bad decisions seem like good ideas. Like the time my buddy Dave held my beer and then tried to fix the station's artificial gravity while it was running. Took 3 days to get him down from the ceiling. The assembled creatures process this information with the gravity of scholars discovering a new fundamental force of physics. Jake's casual anecdote about gravity-based mishaps is immediately classified as intelligence regarding human aerospace capabilities. Jake, Bebo ventures carefully, what exactly do humans do for fun? Jake brightens considerably. Oh, tons of stuff. We play sports where we try to hit small objects with sticks or carry bigger objects across arbitrary lines while other people try to stop us. We watch other people pretend to be different people while dramatic music plays. We build elaborate structures just to knock them down again. We compete to see who can eat the most food in the shortest time. We voluntarily subject ourselves to scary situations for entertainment. Each item on Jake's list gets added to humanity's threat assessment profile. Competitive athletics become evidence of combat training. Theater becomes psychological warfare preparation. Demolition games become engineering exercises. Eating contests become resource management training. Horror entertainment becomes fear immunity conditioning. And, Jake continues, warming to his subject, we have this thing called extreme sports, where we basically try to find new and creative ways to almost die without actually dying. Jumping off tall things with questionable safety equipment, racing vehicles at dangerous speeds, climbing mountains that don't want to be climbed, that sort of thing. The cantina falls silent as every species present contemplates the implications of a race that considers almost dying to be recreational activity. Your species, Vortak says slowly, pursues near-death experiences for pleasure? Oh yeah, absolutely. There's this whole philosophy about it. Something about how you don't feel truly alive unless you're risking being truly dead. Personally, I prefer my thrills a little less lethal. Give me a good maintenance challenge over base jumping any day. And there it is. Jake Murphy, who still doesn't understand why everyone's looking at him like he just explained how to build a fusion reactor out of spare parts and positive thinking, has just solidified humanity's reputation as a species of absolutely unhinged danger seekers who consider mortal peril to be light entertainment. The betting pools have shifted dramatically. The silicon-based life forms are now investing heavily in human-friendly infrastructure. The Zentorians have started a cultural exchange program. Commander Zilch is drafting recruitment offers. Jake finishes his beer and checks the time on his wrist communicator. Well, this has been fun, but I should probably head home. Got an early shift tomorrow. The main water recycling system is making that groaning sound again, and if I don't fix it soon, half the station's going to be showering in their own, well, let's just say it won't be pleasant. He stands up, leaves payment for his drinks, plus a generous tip for Blebo, and heads for the door. As he passes the foam-wrapped backup 3, he pats the cocoon gently. Hang in there, buddy. Remember, it's biodegradable. You'll be out before you know it. Jake pauses at the cantina entrance and turns back to address the room. Oh, and Blebo, you might want to get that floor plating by the door looked at. Someone's going to trip on that buckle and hurt themselves. With that final piece of practical advice, Jake Murphy, maintenance worker extraordinaire and accidental legend, walks out into the corridor, whistling a tune that sounds suspiciously like an Earth song called Don't Stop Believing. Behind him, the cosmic cantina buzzes with activity as species representatives place calls to their homeworlds. Military analysts update threat assessments, and Blebo finally puts down that glass he's been polishing since the whole thing started. Vortak looks around at his recovering pack and makes a decision that will reshape interspecies relations for the next century. We need to learn more about these humans. And somewhere in the maintenance section of Zephyr Station, Jake Murphy is completely oblivious to the fact that he's just accidentally established humanity as the galaxy's most unpredictably competent species. All because he wanted a beer and some nachos after a long day of keeping everyone alive. The universe, it seems, has a sense of humor after all. It's just not a very kind one.